Good morning and welcome. 25 bips. That's going to be really the statement which is going to be the most talked after statement today at least. And welcome. You're watching Market Cafe. I'm Harsh Saita and with me is Ankita Saxena. So Ankita is going to talk to us all about global markets. Let's dive straight into it. Ankita.
Good morning to you, Harsh, and good morning, everyone. Well, Harsh, you said it, 25 basis points, that's going to be the talking point. But more than that, it's the Janet Yellen's comment that is going to be taking the center stage, of course, because that led to a huge slide in the Dow index. Now, yesterday, the stocks tumbled as the Federal Reserve hiked interest rates by 25 basis points, while at the same time acknowledging the turmoil in the banking sector could slow the already fragile economy. Regional banks led the slide. Adding to the decline were comments from Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, who told the US Senate that the US was not currently working on blanket issuance for bank deposits. Now, primarily, it is Janet Yellen's comments that really weighed down the market because 25 basis points cut is something that the street was already penciling in. Now, the Dow Jones Industrial Average fell a good 530 points. The S&P 500 dropped 1.6% and the Nasdaq Composite declined 1.6%. Now, the European stocks, however, were bucking the trend. They ended the day slightly higher, even after the UK inflation data showed consumer price inflation that rose from 10.1% in January to 10.4% in February, even though the economists had by the Refinitiv had polled and they were expecting a fall of 9 to 9.9%. So it was clearly hotter than expected. The Bank of England, of course, will have their monetary policy meeting today. So that is something that everyone will be keeping an eye out for. But crazy scenario, inflation data hotter than expected, and yet the markets rallied. After a choppy morning, the Pan-European Stock 600 index closed 0.2% higher. The DAX closed up 0.1% higher. FTSE was up 0.4% and CAC was up 0.2% in trade. So mixed global cues coming in, Harsh. Can't really make much sense of that. Where is the crude at?
Well, yes, Ankita. So let's talk about crude. Now, interesting inflection point at the moment that's come through. Mind you, the dollar index, and let's speak about that for maybe 10 seconds before we move to crude. So the dollar index itself was at 103 yesterday, and it's moved to around 101 today. So what we're seeing is we've seen a decline in the dollar index, which is of course largely led by the fact that the 25 basis point rate hike, as well as what Ankita spoke about in terms of commentary, that's what's really led the dollar index lower. And what's therefore happened is crude has risen quite sharply, 2% uptick in terms of crude prices over yesterday. So we're seeing WTI oil above the $70 a barrel mark. We're seeing Brent above the $76 a barrel mark. So we're seeing a good catch up that's happening in crude. And of course, that, as I did mention, is on the back of the dollar index. Mind you, they work inverse to each other. The dollar index falling will mean crude rises up. So that's exactly what's happened in trade, at least in early trade today. Crude has come off those highs, but nonetheless, a 2% gain coming in for crude over yesterday.
All right, Harsh, thank you for that. Dollar index easing and crude gaining overnight. Now, the events to watch out for, very important interest rate decisions will be coming out from UK, Switzerland, Brazil, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Norway and Turkey. These are the important events globally that we will be closely tracking. But back home, we have Gokul Agro Resources. The rights issue for it will close today. Also, Saturn Credit Care Network will have a board meeting for fundraising. We also have Ajanta Pharma. Today is the last day for the share buybacks, and of course, Ramadan begins today.
Well, thanks for that roundup, Ankita. But even with all of that, what's going to take center stage is the US Federal Reserve, which hiked the policy rate by 25 basis points, taking it to the band of 4.75 to 5% last night. But they also acknowledged the recent banking crisis and expressed caution, indicating that hikes are nearing an end now. In fact, the dot plot now forecasts just another rate hike in 2023, just one more. And the Fed did not sound as hawkish as earlier, but added that rate cuts are not in their base case for the remainder of the year. Along with its ninth hike since March 2022, The rate setting FOMC, which is the Federal Open Market Committee, noted that future increases are not assured and will depend largely on incoming data. Listen in to what Jerome Powell had to say on this front.
We will continue to closely monitor conditions in the banking system and are prepared to use all of our tools as needed to keep it safe and sound. In addition, we are committed to learning the lessons from this episode and to work to prevent events like this from happening again. Turning to the broader economy and monetary policy, inflation remains too high and the labor market continues to be very tight. My colleagues and I understand the hardship that high inflation is causing, and we remain strongly committed to bringing inflation back down to our 2% goal. We believe, however, that events in the banking system over the past 2 weeks are likely to result in tighter credit conditions for households and businesses, which would in turn affect economic outcomes. It is too soon to determine the extent of these effects, and therefore too soon to tell how monetary policy should respond. As a result, we no longer state that we anticipate that ongoing rate increases will be appropriate to quell inflation. Instead, we now anticipate that some additional policy firming may be appropriate.
And well, that's right, Harsh. Like you mentioned, the 25 basis points was penciled in, and the commentary was also not that hawkish. But what weighed down was probably the stance of the U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, who gave a very strongly worded testimony at the Senate, saying those responsible for bank failures should not profit. Now, addressed that they have not considered or discussed a blanket issuance of the U.S. banking deposits without approval by Congress as a way to stem the turmoil.
Well, yes, let's listen into what some of the large investors in the US, including the likes of Bill Ackman, he said that he expects an acceleration of deposit outflows from banks after the US Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen walked back on comments about guaranteeing all deposits and the Federal Reserve raised its benchmark rate. We have gone from implicit support for depositors to Secretary Yellen explicitly stating that there is no guarantee being considered, with rates now being raised to 5%. Ackman said in a long Twitter post, and the 5% rate threshold makes bank deposits much less attractive, is what he's written.
And well, moving on from US to France, French President Emmanuel Macron breaks his months of silence in a TV interview, stating that he won't back down over the higher pension age. And this comes ahead of another day of national strikes and protests. The president ruled out dissolution of parliament, reshuffle of his centrist government, and the resignation of his prime minister, as the opposition has demanded.
Well, moving to Britain, British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak wins the backing of Parliament for reworking on post-Brexit deal on Northern Ireland. This win comes despite lack of support from the province's biggest unionist party and some of his lawmakers as well. He agreed with the EU to introduce the Stormont Break, which is aimed at offering Northern Ireland more control to accept any new EU laws as part of the so-called Windsor framework of measures.
And tens of thousands of storm-weary Californians stay without power and under evacuation warnings as storm across California comes after months of heavy rain and snowfall. Meanwhile, falling trees have killed 2 people in California as storms, damaging winds, rain and snowfall continue to batter the western US state.
Proud moments. The awards ceremony for the Padma Awards 2023 took place at the Rashtrapati Bhavan a short while ago, yesterday rather. This is one of the highest civilian awards of the country, and 3 categories, the Padma Vibhushan, the Padma Bhushan and the Padma Shri, were awarded. Industrialist K.M. Birla, the chairman of Aditya Birla Group, was awarded the Padma Bhushan. Sudha Murthy was among those conferred the Padma Bhushan, whereas ace investor Rakesh Jhunjhunwala was awarded the Padma Shri posthumously. His wife Rekha Jhunjhunwala and the family were present to receive the award. A total of 106 awards were conferred to people from different walks of life. This is probably the first time that an investor has been honored for reposing faith in the Indian markets. So we spoke with managing editor Nikunj Dalmia about the role Mr. Jhunjhunwala played for the industry. Listen in to what he had to say.
It's a special day for stock market followers because this is for the first time an investor, not an industrialist, has been awarded the Padma Award. Now, this is for the first time the government has actually honored a wealth creator. A wealth creator, someone who has created wealth by believing in just one simple thing, that India is going to be a better place with each passing day. And that is what Rakesh Jhunjhunwala was all about. His faith, his belief, which was centered around that India will perhaps be the country of this decade, in a sense, is something which has really given him name, fame, and the kind of wealth he created. So really from an endorsement standpoint, this is an endorsement for India's original stock market folk hero. It is an endorsement by the government that they want to honor, they want to reward, and they really want to acknowledge investors in India who have exhibited faith in India, who've done the right things, who've kept it simple, and who've really believed in the India story throughout the time. Tamanna, when Rakesh Jhunjhunwala started his investing career, that time bears used to make money in India, bulls never made money. So for me, not only he was a very dear friend, he was a true source of inspiration for many crores of investors who would always look up to him. But I would also say that he was the real original big bull, which is what Indian markets always, called him.
Nikunj, something you said really struck me, that it's of course a great matter of honor for Mr. Jhunjhunwala's family, for all of those who admire him, but also for the Indian stock markets to be recognized as a great creator of value and contribution as part of this economy and to this nation. Do you think that message has also gone out today?
Oh yes. I mean, for me, that I think is the single biggest endorsement by the government that India is a rising economy, and if you want to reach your financial goals, you can do that by participating in the Indian equity market, by believing in India, and by really doing financial planning. For any rising economy, stock market have always played an integral part in everyone's wealth creation. The numbers are out in the open as to what kind of SIP collections we have on a monthly basis, how Indian savings are now moving from traditional instruments to equity as an instrument, largely via mutual fund, and the kind of billionaires what we have in India in terms of the Ambani family, the Adani family, the Birla family, that is a sheer indication and representation of the Indian stock market. And Tamanna, we have to be proud of a lot of things in the Indian stock market. The systems, the mechanism, the exchanges, the swiftness with which orders they go through, T+1 settlement, the regulators like SEBI, Reserve Bank of India, all that put together, I guess, is a very fine setting of where India is and why Indian markets are actually trading at a premium. Also, for me, this means that government, while in India equity as an asset class is always has got a different kind of a tax treatment if you do short-term trading and if you do long-term investing. But that, I guess, is a sheer acknowledgement. The purpose of capital market is to provide capital to entrepreneurs, and it also allows an Aam Aadmi an average investor to participate in the India wealth creation journey, where there are thousands of entrepreneurs who really are putting the shoulder to the wheel, and that in a sense is really helping this entire equity wave in India.
And well, with that, it's time for us to slip into a short break. You don't go anywhere. We'll go more stock specific and on the domestic front on the other side. Welcome back. You're watching Market Cafe. Move over 5G. Yes, it is time for 6G, it seems. Barely 6 months after the rollout of 5G services in India, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has unveiled the Bharat 6G Vision document and launched the 6G Research and Development Test Bed. Now, in August last year, PM had said that the government was preparing to launch the 6G by the end of this decade, but the work is happening on 6G too soon? My colleague Sumita Karir has more details on it. We'll go across to her and listen in.
Well, I'm at Vigyan Bhavan today, where just a couple of minutes back, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, External Affairs Minister S. J. Shankar, and of course, Minister of Communications, IT and Railways, Mr. Ashwini Vaishnav came, and they announced two key things. Number one, as you can see behind me, Prime Minister Modi inaugurated the Area Office and Innovation Center of the International Telecommunications Union here. And the second most important thing that was announced was a 6G test bed, which is going to provide research, which is going to enable the government to do research around the development of 6G technology in the country. So that was a vision document as well that was revealed. So why is this all critical, especially when it's happening right now? Well, if you see, after 5G now, the race to dominate 6G has begun already in the world. We've seen the United States develop the technology, UK, and in fact talking about South Korea, Japan, and in fact China is also very, very aggressively developing that technology, because 6G will open a whole host of services, open new frontiers in the space of commercial telecom services. In fact, if as far as robotics are concerned, or if hospital surgeries have to be remotely done, then of course 6G speeds are going to be key, and which is why India has started the development of has announced this today to develop 6G in the country. Now, very important to also note that this is coming in just 6 months after the 5G deployment in the country. Of course, Prime Minister Narendra Modi also said that India is fast moving in the direction of being a 5G exporter of the digital stack of India. We've shown the world how to move quickly as far as being a startup nation is concerned. Now, India is the third largest startup nation in the world. So India is really, really pushing out its digital technologies, its digital stack, and of course it wants to be a key exporter of these digital technologies, 5G, and of course which is why the announcement of 6G has happened. Now, as far as the countries that I mentioned, South Korea, Japan, and in fact China, according to some news reports, the rollout is expected to happen anytime between 2028 and 2030. So it's very, very imperative for India to sort of start developing that technology, also to assume a significant position as far as the global South is concerned, where India has a significant position already.
Well, thanks for that, Sumita. We'll quickly move on. In the wake of the rising COVID cases, Prime Minister Narendra Modi held a high-level meeting to review the COVID preparedness today. Top ministers like Home Minister Amit Shah and Civil Aviation Minister Jyotiraditya Scindia attended the meet and also submitted a status report to the PM on the COVID alert. India has more than 1,100 COVID cases over the last 24 hours, the highest daily caseload in 5 months. 5 deaths have been reported from Chhattisgarh, Delhi, Gujarat and Maharashtra, and 1 reconciled by Kerala. The daily positivity rate was recorded at 1.09%, while the weekly positivity was pegged at 0.98%. And we also spoke with health expert Dr. Swaminathan Subramaniam, who is the director at Infectious Diseases Global Hospitals, and Dr. Ishwar Gilada, who is the consultant in infectious diseases and Secretary General of the Organized Medicine Academic Guild, to get more insight into the situation. Listen in.
all the other issues are also valid. We need to look at whether this is a passenger or a pathogen. Because there's a lot of asymptomatic COVID going on. A lot of flu may be misdiagnosed as COVID because the COVID is probably not a pathogen there at all. So unless we do more testing and more multiplex PCR testing, we won't really know, because there is RSV, there is adenovirus, there is all kinds of flu and of course COVID going around. But the good news is, I think the end is in sight for a lot of the other respiratory viral infections as it gets warmer. And also the fact that schools are, going into vacation mode, and therefore transmission should get disrupted to some extent.
Cases are increasing, and they are as a result of waning immunity, either because of the natural immunity, which is after infection, or the vaccine immunity, because a lot of people have taken second dose, and that is almost 1.5 years, 2 years back. And only 29% of the population taken third dose, and that was more than a year back. So that is the issue. But however, so long as, number one, no new variant has come. In last 15, 16 months, there is no new variant. And whatever variant we have, that is Omicron, I have been calling it variant of support rather than variant of concern, because oxygen demand, hospitalization, ICU demand, or ventilator demand, and deaths are very, very low.
And well, the flurry of repo rate hikes by the Reserve Bank of India in recent months has pushed up home loan interest rates. Now, for most banks, the external benchmark to which their home loans are linked is the repo rate. Now, this means that the entire rate hike is being passed on to the borrowers. Now, along with rising EMIs, the bank hikes the tenure of the loans without any change in the principal amount. To a layman, this can be both baffling and scary. Now, while market experts believe that RBI may put a pause to rate hikes, will it help the common borrower? Well, that is something that we really need to watch out for.
Right. Thank you so much for that, Ankita. Let's quickly shift to a break. A short one though, more on the other side. We'll go again domestic and stock specific. Welcome back. You're watching Market Cafe on ET Now. Now we'll switch over. We'll talk about Tata Consumer for a bit. After calling off plans to acquire leading bottled water brand Bisleri, Tata Consumer Products will now invest big on its own mineral water brands such as Tata Copper Plus and Himalayan. This is what the company CEO and Managing Director Sunil D'Souza said to the Economic Times. Remember, the Tata Group company had said on Friday that it had ceased negotiations with Ramesh Chauhan's Bisleri International for a potential acquisition. Sunil D'Souza said that acquiring Bisleri would have fast-forwarded the company's plans by 3 years, but it was just a small puzzle in the company's big F&B puzzle box. He added that they will now back their own brands of mineral water. He added that Bisleri is a fantastic brand and would have changed the company's growth trajectory completely, but that plan is done and dusted for now.
And well, it's that time of the show where we get to all the stock specific action, and for that we have Ashesha in the studio with us. Ashesha, take us through all the stocks that we need to keep an eye out for.
Hi, good morning. So HAL or Hindustan Aeronautics will be the first one in focus in today's trading session, and that is because the government intends to sell stake in the company via an offer for sale. Government intends to sell 1.75% stake in the company with an additional offer to sell up to additional 1.75% stake via a green shoe option. Floor price of this OFS has been fixed at 2,450 rupees per share. The stock currently trades at 2,620 odd levels. The OFS will be open for non-retail shareholders today, and for retail shareholders it will be open tomorrow. Apart from this, Hero MotoCorp will also be in focus, and that is on account of price hikes that the company has undertaken. The company said in an exchange filing that they will be revising prices of its select motorcycles and scooters with effect from the 1st of April 2023. Price revisions shall stand at about 2%, and the exact quantum of increase will vary depending upon specific model and the market conditions on account of price hike that is to be undertaken, Hero MotoCorp will also be in focus in today's trading session. Also keep an eye out on NBCC, and this is on the back of an order win. The company has informed the exchanges that they have received letter of award for construction of a medical college and their maintenance during defect liability period. This shall be for a period of 5 years on EPC basis, and the total project cost stands at about 625 crores. So order win is the reason NBCC will be in focus in today's trading session. GR Infra Projects, Messrs Dibang Power Consortium, which is a joint venture which is between GR Infra Projects and Messrs Patel Engineering Limited, has emerged as L1 bidder in financial bid opening through e-reverse auction. Now the bid project cost stands at about 3,600 odd crores, and share of GMR Infra in the consortium stands at about 50 odd crores on account of this order win that has come in for a joint venture in which GR Infra Projects is also a part. This particular counter will also be in focus in today's trading session. And lastly, HG Infra in focus also on the back of an order win. The company has informed the exchanges that they have been declared as L1 bidder by National Highways Authority of India, or NHAI, for a project of the cost of which stands at about 925 odd crores.
Well, thanks so much for that, Ashesha. Let's quickly move on. The Indian government is going to sell up to 3.5% stake in HAL through an OFS. Ashesha did speak about that. The floor price for the OFS has been fixed at 2450 rupees per share. According to the stock exchange filing, the government has proposed to sell 1.75% of its equity shares on the 23rd of March and 24th of March, and an additional 1.75% stake in the event the oversubscription option is exercised. Now, the OFS will have implications on HAL's MSCI inclusion, and we have my colleague Somit here to explain that for us.
It's to be included in the MSCI index in the May 2023 review as per Novama research. Now, they are given the fact that the government is looking to offload close to 3.5% stake in the company, why an OFS has just increased the probability of the stock getting included in the index. Now, because of the stake sale, obviously the free float of the company will increase, and because of that, if you see the cutoff price for the stock to get included in the index has just come down to around 2,150 from an earlier price of 2,650. Now, do remember the current market price of the share is 22% above the cutoff price, and the OFS price, if you see, that is also nearly 14% above the cutoff price. Also, owing to higher free float, the expected inflows due to the inclusion has increased to around $195 million as against an earlier expectations of $155 million. However, there are some conditions to this. First and the foremost is that the entire 3.5% stake has to be offloaded by the government. Second, and this is the important one, and that is the revised shareholding with the lower government stake should be uploaded on the exchanges till April 16th. Why? Because the market cap cutoff date begins from April 17th for MSCI to consider it in the May review. Now, if the shareholding is not uploaded until April 16th, then the existing free float will be considered, which means that the cutoff price would stand at around 2,650 and the inflows would be lower at around $155 million. However, in past we have seen that in the last 16 quarters, most of the times or always the shareholding pattern has been uploaded before the 15th of the month. So most likely this time also it will be uploaded, which will lead to higher inflows and a lower cutoff price to get included in the MSCI index for Hindustan Aeronautics.
Right, thank you for that, Somit. But please do stay with us. You have all the information on Gail increasing the integrated tariffs at 58.61 per MMBTU, which is actually 38% higher on a year-on-year basis, and the new prices will be coming to effect from 1st of April. Somit, tell us what does this mean for Gail?
Well, if you see, because PNGRB has increased the integrated tariff rates to around 58.61, Gail has said that their revenues could now be higher by around 1,800 to 2,000 crore based on the current volumes. However, do remember that the tariff is lower than what the company had asked for, and the major reason behind this lower tariff approval is the fact that the PNGRB has assumed that the gas cost would be lower going ahead. Now, PNGRB has considered gas prices to be around $3.6 per MMBTU, which is much lower than what Gail has incurring currently. In fact, the prices are lower than the Crude recommended floor price of around $4 per MMBTU. However, the company is saying that once there is clarity coming in from the Kirit Parikh committee report, the company might file a review for this tariff revision, and they're also saying that such review will not take much time and will be taken up by the PNGRB immediately. Now, moving on from this integrated tariff, Gail has also said in their analyst meet that they are expecting the transmission volumes to go up to 120 MMSCMD in FY24, and this is expected to improve by around 5% per annum going forward, and the demand will be driven by fertilizer, city gas distribution companies and refineries. And they also said that with every increase of 1 MMSCMD of gas volume, their annual revenue goes up by around 84 crore. Now, first time the company has also given a clear guidance that they're expecting their gas marketing EBITDA to stand at around 3,500 crore rupees in FY24, and this is a sustainable EBITDA run rate according to the company. And lastly, when it comes to the petrochemical division, which has reported losses to the tune of around 660 crore rupees in the first 9 months of FY23, has finally turned profitable or is at least near break-even given the current low LNG prices and the petrochemical prices. So the company is positive on the petrochemical business segment also.
Right, thanks for that, Somit. Stay with us. Indigo has scheduled its first ever analyst day to meet today in Gurugram. What will be the focus? Somit, talk to us.
Physical analyst meet of Indigo, and it will be held today in Gurugram. The timings are, it will expected to start at 10 a.m. and expected to end by around 3 p.m. and the location where they are doing this is the iFly Academy, which is a training institute in Gurugram. Now, what the street would want to know from this first ever physical analyst meet of Indigo, firstly is their international strategy. Now, currently the company has gotten some planes and wet lease, but will that be, is that an interim solution or will that be a permanent solution given the slower deliveries of aircraft that the company has been seeing? So that is one thing that the street would want to know. Along with this, will the company also offer premium economy and business class segments in the international routes like some of its competitors are doing in future, is also something that the street would want to know. On the capacity addition, what is the schedule that they have planned for the next 2 years, 5 years and 10 years, and what is the kind of passenger growth that they're expecting on both domestic and the international front, and what will be the capacity mix when it comes to the domestic and the international front are some things that the street would want to know and want to have some clarity on this front. Owing to the grounded planes and the supply chain issues globally, if you see, we had seen slower deliveries coming in for Indigo. So is that issue resolved or not is also something that the street would want to know, because this is important as newer planes come in, the older planes will go out and that will lead to more cost savings for Indigo. When it comes to the cargo business, there was a boom that we had seen during COVID, and the company had also announced many plans back then. But what is the strategy right now, given that of late we are seeing some slowdown in the cargo business, is also something that the street would want to know from this analyst meet. And lastly, because of the recent correction in the crude prices, some impact of the high fuel cost has been mitigated for the next financial year, and there's a strong tailwind. But is the industry able to retain the benefit of this fall in ATF prices, or are the yields are also falling? Now, last quarter the company reported its highest ever yield, but is that sustainable is the key question that needs to be answered in this first ever physical meeting of Indigo.
Right, thanks for all of that, Somit. Good download on a few stocks there that Somit has given us. But with that, we're completely out of time on this edition of Market Cafe. You do stay tuned. We have the market in front of us. But for now, from Ankita, myself, and everyone who puts the show together, thanks so much for watching.